All attention in the camera market is focused on a big Canon event that's supposed to take place on July the 17th for the EOS R1 and the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. But people keep bringing up the R6 Mark III. And the idea of an R6 Mark III coming in 2024, well, it first came up in May. I asked Craig Blair about the possibility of the R6 Mark III being announced this year. But that was just pure conjecture. You see, we had so many camera registrations, I was looking at possible indicators as to what could get announced. We had something like 3 or 4 different camera registrations for stills hybrid cameras. And when we took a look at one of the leading indicators of a refresh, pricing, well, the Canon EOS R6 Mark II really stood out. Being discounted by $500, with the Mark I no longer available for sale. And a late 2024 announcement would mark 2 years since we got the refresh of the Mark I, which again was 2.5 years. But does this make sense? And the answer is yes, because the market that the R6 sits in is a very competitive marketplace. And if you want to stay on top of the heap, well, you got to refresh on a regular basis, unlike, well, cameras like the Nikon Z8, the Canon R5, the Sony A7 R5. A refresh cycle of anywhere from 3 to 5 years is more common. Well, this morning, Canon rumors said we continue to hear rumblings about the Canon EOS R6 Mark III, that is going to be announced later in 2024, saying that multiple sources are predicting the R6 Mark III. So what about specs? Well, thankfully, Canon rumors did drop a few specifications, or at least a couple of forecasts of what they think. And I don't think they're too far off. The first being a stacked sensor, or as Nikon did with the Nikon Z6 Mark III, a partially stacked sensor. We've been told multiple times that the R6 Mark III will get some sort of version of the R3's image sensor. The R6 Mark III is also expected to have higher frame rates, which probably means a CF Express Type B slot coming to the EOS R6 Mark III. And that would be bold. That would be bold compared to the Sony a7 IV and the R6 Mark II, but if we hold it up against the Nikon Z6 Mark III, which was just recently announced and is currently sold out everywhere it's on sale, all across the world, well, things are a little bit different. Well, the Nikon Z6 Mark III, which was announced just a few weeks ago, it has a partially stacked sensor, best-in-class video, best-in-class stills. And if you honestly take a look at the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, the Sony a7 IV, and compare it to the Nikon Z6 Mark III, you'll clearly see that really the Nikon Z6 Mark III is best in class. Having a partially stacked sensor is a huge improvement. It gives that camera about, 2.5 to 4 times the throughput speed compared to its predecessor. And that's significant, that's huge. That's what allows it to be able to deliver such higher frame rates, to be able to deliver the best in class video by a long margin. That's really significant. And so the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, while it was announced just 2 years ago, and the Sony a7 IV, well, they're beginning to look a little bit, well, old, a little bit dated compared to this new Nikon camera. So regardless of whatever schedule that Canon had planned for the R6 Mark II, whether it was 2025 or 2024, the Nikon Z6 Mark III has certainly changed that at around $2496. Pretty similar to what the predecessor is. There's a lot of pressure on Canon to deliver the R6 Mark III for around the same price point, but with a partially stacked sensor or a stacked sensor that's basically the same sensor or a modified version of what's in the R3, which is a 24 megapixel sensor. So we don't expect a change in resolution. And the Z6 Mark III also had that 24 megapixel. So partially stacked sensor certainly makes sense. Canon has their own fab, they design their own chips, so they can certainly go ahead and do that. But best-in-class stills, best-in-class video. I don't think that the Canon EOS R6 Mark III can do that much better than what Nikon's doing with the Z6 Mark III, but they can certainly match it. In a world where you hear a lot of people saying, that's it, I'm done with Canon, I'm done with Nikon, I'm switching to this, the vast majority of us don't switch when a better camera comes out from the competition. Now, if anything, we look at that and say, great, okay, what does our camera company have in store for us in the next revision? And the Nikon Z6 Mark III is best in class. I think it's a terrific camera. And if I had $2,500 to buy into this segment today, I'd buy the Nikon Z6 Mark III. By far, it's the better camera for stills and video. It's very powerful. So a Canon EOS R6 Mark III, yeah, I think it's possible. Remember, it was on November the 2nd, 2 years ago, that Canon did announce the R6 Mark II. And with $500 off the R6 Mark II at this point, this information from Canon Rumors is certainly shaping up. It's adding more credibility to what conjecture I put back in early May. Yeah, this is starting to shape up to be a good year. It got off to a really slow start, but the focus on the next couple of weeks is on the R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1. Both cameras from multiple known sources are telling me that they are supposed to be announced on the same day. And that date, well, it's supposed to be June the 17th. And again, that was validated by multiple sources. I'm looking forward to what Canon has ready for us, because I need a second camera. I'm really looking forward to the R5 Mark II. I really do hope that it's not just a minor update, and based on what I'm hearing from Canon Rumors, my sources, I do get a sense that we're all going to want this new camera. The R1, well, that's a different story. I really think the R1 is aimed at professional photographers, sports photographers, fast action photographers, and some wildlife photographers. Wildlife photographers that would rather have a better noise floor, better dynamic range, that are able to work with 24 megapixels. I know some of you would rather have 45 megapixels. You're doing birds in flight and other things where you need more resolution. You want more resolution, and that's fine. This camera isn't for you. But this is where I want to offer another conjecture, just like I did with the R6 Mark III. I think it's time for a high-resolution camera for the R5, but I think Nikon could be the first company to come to market with a mirrorless. Currently, the highest resolution camera offered by Canon is a DSLR that I don't even know if it's available for sale anymore, that offers 50 megapixels, and that's an old 5D. So, with the Nikon Z7 most likely getting ready for a refresh, I think it's going to be repurposed as a high-resolution camera, somewhere north of 61 megapixels, to not catch up to the Sony A7R4 and R5, but to be a bit of a trailblazer and go north of that, perhaps somewhere between 80 and 100 megapixels. So we'll just have to wait and see. It is shaping up to be a very exciting time, with it just over 2 weeks before the supposed announcement of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the EOS R1. We expect to start getting more tidbits. As somebody who had never reached out to me before came up to me today and said, through social media, that the R1 is going to have some sort of panoramic feature. Now, I haven't had that validated. I just got that this morning. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, that's not really for sports fast action photographers, but that would certainly be a nod to, well, wildlife and even landscape photographers. Really interesting, right? And a big thanks to all of you for staying and watching to the very end. Please don't forget to use my affiliate links down below. And if you're interested in buying the R5 Mark II and the EOS R1, that's why I have the smart pre-order links to both cameras down below. And we actually have the pre-order pages already for the Canon EOS R1. Canon is really focusing on the R1. And as one source has said, we're getting the R5 Mark II and the R1 at the same event, which certainly seems to make sense with what we're hearing from Canon Rumors and others. But all focus is on the R1. It's like this is where Canon wants our attention drawn to, is this new flagship camera. A flagship camera that appears to be a niche to several others. Anyhow, I do plan on doing a live stream on July the 17th. I have the day off. I haven't booked anything yet because at this point we don't have any time. I would expect some week to 2 weeks before the actual event, Canon will put out some sort of, well, notification inviting us to Canon's virtual event. I expect that to come, well, it could happen any day now. I'm looking forward to this. And yes, I am a bit biased here because I've been shooting with the R5 for 4 years. I think it's a terrific camera. And like any of you out there, whether you have a Nikon, Panasonic, OM Systems, Sony, whenever you get closer to a refresh, you're getting a little bit excited. What could this new camera involve? Will it have enough new capabilities to get me wanting to buy it? And that's kind of where I am right now. I'm really excited by this, and maybe you aren't. Maybe you're a Sony or a Nikon shooter, and if you are, well, then you've got a lot to look forward as well. We just got the Nikon Z6 Mark III. Expect many more Nikon cameras to come out. We have 2 registered cameras, one registered back in January that we haven't seen released yet. I still think it's going to be a Z7 Mark III, but we could have that Nikon Z9H. And Sony's been awfully quiet, other than the A9 III, which was announced last year and started shipping in February. We're expecting some Sony announcements too, so don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter, X, whatever they're calling themselves. It's X now. Even if you type in x.com, it goes directly to the site. It's the best way to stay up to date on the latest and greatest. And I'm off for the next 4 weeks starting Friday. So if anything comes out, I'll make sure I'll get it out to you ASAP. So I'm really excited. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in, watching to the very end. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.